information in our era of misinformation can be countered. And to hear more about that, please welcome with a round of applause, Mr. Mike Fegelman.
Good evening, everyone. We gather here tonight in solemn remembrance to honor the 6 million Jews who were murdered during the Shoah, who perished at the hands of a regime built on hatred. But tonight, remembrance alone is not enough. We are living through a moment when the lessons of the Holocaust, lessons we believed had been carved into the bedrock of our collective memory, have been forgotten, distorted, or worse, denied. Tonight, we're called not only to remember, but to bear testimony, to stand firm in truth, and to act. Throughout Jewish history, we have served as a light unto the nations, a moral compass, a people whose strength wasn't necessarily in numbers or weapons, but in faith, in dignity. We heard the word said a couple times tonight, in resilience. But tonight, we are not just called to inspire. We are called to testify. Because testimony is more than symbolism. It is more than storytelling. It is evidence. It is historical. It is moral and cultural proof that we have endured, and that truth can, and indeed it must, survive. Today in 2025, we must offer that testimony more loudly and clearly than we ever have. Because we are witnessing a moral unraveling. The world around us is convulsing with hatred. On October 7th, we saw that evil unleashed in ways we thought belonged to the past, in ways that we thought was unimaginable. Terrorists, cloaked in the language of religious zeal, carried out acts of unspeakable barbarity, atrocities that should have been impossible in a post-Holocaust world. Murder, rape, torture, justified all in the name of God. These crimes were not only an attack on the Jewish people and on Israel, they were an assault on humanity and civilization itself, on everything that is good and just in this world. But as horrifying as that day was, what has followed is, in some ways, even more shocking, the response. We've watched as so-called enlightened societies, the intelligentsia, academic institutions, mainstream media, and even human rights organizations and political stakeholders, how they have excused, how they have minimized, and even at times celebrated the massacres that took place on that fateful day. We've heard rationalizations for the slaughter of Jewish children, women, and men. We've seen people chant in our streets here in London, not calls for peace, but for intifada, a bloodlust call for violence. We have witnessed anti-Semitism surge, not creep. It is surging, like a tidal wave, almost like a tsunami of hatred across university campuses, on social media, in classrooms, in boardrooms, in mainstream media, and indeed in the halls of power. We've heard ancient blood libels repackaged as progressivism and cloaked in the language of human rights. Jews accused of genocide, of apartheid. Holocaust survivors defamed as being colonizers. Synagogues attacked. Jewish students isolated, intimidated, and assaulted. Journalists twisting the truth and blaming the victim. This is not history repeating itself. This is history refusing to be buried. And I say this not just as a Jew, but as the director of honest reporting, an organization that is a watchdog ensuring fair and accurate media coverage of Israel and of the Jewish people. We see how in real time, how distorted media coverage serves to fan the flames of hatred, how omissions become denial, how slanted headlines dehumanize, and how they distort, how double standards normalize anti-Semitism under the guise of critique. Let me be absolutely clear. Criticism of Israeli policies is not anti-Semitism. Israelis do it every day. It is the hallmark and bedrock of a functioning, vibrant, liberal democracy. But when that criticism demonizes, delegitimizes, and holds a double standard, when it turns the Jewish state into the world's very villain and its people into monsters and war criminals, that is anti-Semitism. That is why the IRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, adopted by 30 countries, including the government of Canada, is so critical, because we cannot fight what we cannot name. And yet, even this definition is under attack. We are told that it serves to limit free speech, that it's too broad. But this definition is not about censorship. It's about clarity. It helps us to see what is often hidden. It gives educators, it gives journalists and policymakers the tools to recognize modern anti-Semitism for what it is. So we heard that a little earlier. It is a shapeshifter. It is a mutating virus, one that now cloaks itself in the language of social justice. And that's what makes it especially dangerous. We are watching an unholy alliance between radical Islamists who dream of a world without Jews and far-left activists who see the Jewish state as the embodiment of everything they hate about the West. They share almost nothing ideologically, but yet they are united in one thing: their hatred for the Jewish people. And so tonight, on Yom HaShoah, we must say enough must be. No more anti-Semitism. Not in our schools, not in our media, not in our politics, not in our synagogues, not online, not anywhere. Because hatred never stops with the Jews. History has shown us that over and over again. And that brings me to testimony, to our sacred duty and obligation. We are described as being the people of memory. We do not forget. We do not erase. We remember. That memory is not passive. It's active. It's defiant. It is our weapon against those who seek to rewrite history, or indeed to bury it altogether. That's why I believe that the work of Holocaust survivors, some here today, who have the courage to share their experiences, is so vital. These stories they're not just personal, they are national. They are civilizational. They teach us what happens when truth is replaced with ideology, when neighbors become enemies, when silence replaces resistance. In Canada, over 40,000 Holocaust survivors rebuilt their lives after the war. They made this country better. They enriched it. They contributed to our democracy, our economy, our culture, brought us moral clarity and a moral compass. Their stories must be heard. And when they are gone, as many sadly are, it becomes our responsibility to ensure that memory endures in classrooms, on TikTok, at the dinner table, in newsrooms, and in Parliament. This work is now more urgent than ever, because we're not only fighting Holocaust denial, we're fighting Holocaust distortion. And in many respects, that's a much harder battle to face. Distortion doesn't come waving a swastika. It doesn't deny the existence of gas chambers. It does worse. It asks insidious questions. It compares COVID restrictions to ghettos. It jokes about Jewish stars. It likens the Jewish state to Nazi Germany, and it puts, with some graphical design, it puts the image of Anne Frank in the Gaza Strip to make a really gross analogy between Gaza and the Warsaw Ghetto. It is not only offensive, I tell you it is dangerous because it erodes truth. And when truth is eroded, Jewish oppression becomes thinkable again. And in some circles, and in some respects for some, it even becomes virtuous. In Canada, Holocaust deniers like Ernst Zundel were not harmless cranks. They were loud, they were organized, and they were heard. It was because of them that many survivors broke their silence and indeed spoke out. One that I know, a gentleman named John Freund, a Holocaust survivor from the former Czechoslovakia. He told me that it was the fact that there was this other trial that came forward that finally pushed him to write his story. Because silence is no longer an option. Tonight I want to close with this. We are not only the people of the book, we are the people in the book. The story of the Jewish people. It is living. It is unfolded. It is an unfolding testimony. From Egypt to Auschwitz to Israel. From ancient prophecy to modern resilience. Every one of us here, you need to know this. You are a chapter of that book. We have endured hatred. We have endured exile, destruction, genocide, and still we rise. We create. We rebuild. We tell the truth. So to those who wish to erase us, we offer testimony. To a world spinning in confusion, we offer clarity. To the next generation, we offer story, we offer empathy, and we offer moral courage. We will not let the Shoah be reduced to a metaphor or to a meme. We will not allow hatred to masquerade as justice, and we will not allow a single survivor's story to be lost to distortion or to denial. But if we are to honor that promise, the promise of never again, then the remembrance has to come with responsibility. Holocaust education, it is not just a curriculum. It is a clarion call to conscience. It asks us not only to learn, but more importantly to act, to interrupt hate when it whispers, to speak up when others fall silent, to know history and hate deeply enough to recognize its early warning signs when they reemerge, oftentimes cloaked in new language, draped in different flags. And make no mistake, we are seeing those signs over and over again. In every swastika drawn on a school desk, in every Jewish student afraid to show their face and hide their identity, in every excuse being made to justify and indeed rationalize terrorism, in every Holocaust comparison that trivializes the dead and re-traumatizes the living. We must also recognize that Holocaust memory is fragile, not because it is unimportant, but because it is human. As survivors pass, we are transitioning from living memory to that collective responsibility. The baton has been passed to us, and that is both a gift and indeed it is also a burden. It is a gift because we are the inheritors of truth. It is a burden because we are now its protectors. We cannot outsource memory, not to institutions, to textbooks, or even museums. It has to live within us, in how we teach, in how we report, in a couple of days, in how we vote, in how we speak. And we must remember that while the Holocaust was uniquely Jewish in target, its lessons are universal in their warning. It didn't begin with gas chambers, it began with words, with conspiracy theories, with political scapegoating, with laws that dehumanized, and with rhetoric that served to divide. It began when people looked away. And so, this may sound simple, we cannot look away. We must look forward and toward the next generation, not with fear, but with faith. Faith that they can carry this torch, that they must carry this torch, that they can hold the complexity, that they can understand that Jewish identity, it is not a footnote in history, but a vital, living part of humanity's very story. We need your voices, your curiosity, your compassion, your courage to speak up, even when it's hard, especially when it is hard. The Holocaust was not inevitable. It was made possible by choices made by humans, not just monsters, but by humans. Paraphrase from the famous quote by Keynote 11. And so is its prevention. Let us choose remembrance. Let us choose truth. Let us choose humanity. And let us leave here tonight not only with candles lit, but it is my hope, with our hearts kindled, with a fire that says, we remember, we resist, we rise. Let us raise our voices tonight, not in mourning, but what I really hope and pray, in mission, because never again must mean never forget, and never forget must mean never again. Thank you.